Well, thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate it. I first want to ask you about the Hands Off My Wi-Fi panel you were just on after the FCC ruling on net neutrality. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, I thought it was a great panel, and we were unanimous in saying that it is totally ironic for the FCC on a narrow 3-2 vote to put out a book of new regulations and interpretations of regulations that's that thick and claim that that's going to create a more open and free internet. It will have exactly the opposite effect. So we're going to fight it in the Congress. I'm glad we have folks like Ajit Pai, who is an FCC commissioner and was on the panel with us, and who fought the good fight and will continue to do that to make sure that the internet stays free and innovative and open to folks. And we'll do that without government regulation. That's how it got to where it is today. And to argue that we now need the government to step in, not so.
And specifically, why is it bad to politicize internet regulation?
Well, first of all, this is an independent regulatory agency, the Federal Communications Commission, and you know, a lot of its mission is controversial. It really is a 19th century, a 20th century creation that's operating in a 21st century world, and the majority there is trying to find a new role for itself. But what has happened here is that the president has very publicly and very forcefully said he wants this done. Well, this is not someone who reports to the President of the United States. It's an independent regulatory agency that has succumbed to the President, the White House's pressures. And that is, again, the President taking his pen and his phone and making changes that I don't think are in the interest of the American people, and certainly not what the congressional intent is with regard to how the FCC should function. It's a power that will be challenged in court, challenged in the Congress, and I hope we win.
And speaking of the president taking unilateral action and all of that, immigration, this ongoing debate, I'm sure you had a late night last night with DHS. The Judiciary Committee has unveiled bills to strengthen enforcement and integrity of immigration laws. Could you talk a little bit about that?
Absolutely. This president has failed miserably in enforcement of our immigration laws. And the result of that is that the people do not trust the president in a lot of ways, but they particularly do not trust his leadership on this issue and on the enforcement of our laws, the securing of our borders, the enforcement of our laws in the interior of the country. And so we're going to step up with 4 bills that we're going to mark up in the Judiciary Committee next week that deals with making sure that we're putting enforcement first. We also have to have legal reforms, and certainly we're going to have an ongoing discussion about what happens to the 11 million people who are not lawfully present in the United States. But the president's policies are basically an open door invitation. We're going to give legal status to 5 million people, so come on in, because if you come in, we're not going to throw you out either unless you commit a serious crime. That's not what our law says. It says that we are a nation of immigrants, but we are also a nation of laws, and respect for the rule of law has got to guide our immigration policies. This president has failed that miserably.
Mm-hmm. And on that, conservatives and the Republicans have kind of been attacked as being anti-immigrant. Do you have any suggestions for how they could better market themselves as not anti-immigrant, but anti-illegal immigrant?
Well, first of all, we are pro rule of law, and we are for legal immigration. And as I said, we're a nation of immigrants. There's not a person watching this program who's a United States citizen who can't go back a few generations or several generations and find a member of their family who came to the United States to better their lives for themselves. But respect for the rule of law has got to be the guiding light of a free and civilized society. And so enforcing those laws and not having illegal immigration is the leading point. And people of every background agree with that position. And many, many people who have lawfully immigrated to the United States have great respect for this country and the rule of law and that concept and support us. So I think if we stand up to do what's right, that's going to be the most important thing, and the politics is going to take care of itself right behind that.
And switching gears a little bit, recently you've made news with the ATF trying to ban certain ammunitions, the AR-15. You oppose this. Could you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. The Second Amendment to our Constitution, the right to keep and bear arms, is a very, very important part of our Constitution and a very important right of our citizens. And this is again an example of a president who tried to ban a particular firearm. We've tried to ban many, but one of the key ones, one of the most popular ones, is the AR-15, which is the most popular shooting rifle in America. More than 5 million Americans own it. Hundreds of thousands buy them every year. And the fact of the matter is, he couldn't get the Congress to agree to ban the rifle. So now he's trying to ban the bullets that go in the rifle, and doing it again with his pen and his phone to try to administratively, through the ATF, do something that the Congress does not want to do. I highly question the process they're following. Again, it's not a transparent process. The people's comments should be seen by the people, and this is something that should go through the legislative process. Basically, they are trying to change the law through an administrative procedure, and we will push back against that again, both legislatively, and I'm sure someone will challenge it in the courts as well.
Mm-hmm. And on the spectrum of issues here, I want to know your thoughts on the recent push for prison reform.
Well, I think that looking for criminal justice reform is a wise thing. Many of the states have already done this and have had success, and the ones to look at are the ones where they have lowered their prison population and lowered their crime or recidivism rates at the same time. And several states have accomplished this, including the state of Texas. So we've been looking at what they've been doing and learning from that. But there definitely is a need to look at the fact that we now have 5,000 federal criminal laws. We're adding about 500 a decade, and we've got to stop that trend. We've got to make sure that those laws require what's called mens rea, or a showing of criminal intent, before you can be convicted of a crime you didn't even know existed as a crime, when there are 5,000 of them on the books. And we've got to make sure that when people come out of prison after they've served their time, that they're ready to come back into society. So there are good prison reform programs to make sure that they are no longer drug addicts, that they have a vocational experience, that they're ready to take a job. These are the kinds of things that we should look at in doing criminal justice reform.
Mm-hmm. And do you feel that there should be a focus on the nonviolent, the drug offenders?
Well, we'll certainly take a look at sentencing requirements, but remember that drugs themselves lead to a tremendous amount of violence. So if you're a significant drug dealer, smaller dealers and users, we really should be letting the states take care of that. But if you're a significant drug dealer trafficking drugs from outside the country or across state lines, you should get a serious, serious punishment for doing that, because you have unleashed all manner of harm on the people that you're purveying these very deadly and addictive drugs on.
And thoughts on 2016? What kind of leadership do we need to see come out of the Republican Party?
Well, I think we need to have a candidate for President of the United States who understands the American people and can speak to them in a terminology they understand about how freedom is their best future, and that lessening their dependence upon government and giving them more opportunity and more self-reliance is what we want to see. So in sum, what I want to see is a President of the United States who's going to stand up for the people, stand up for the Constitution, and I'd like to see the most conservative candidate we can get who can win the election. So I'm watching closely. CPAC has been a great place to showcase some great candidates for President of the United States.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.